Well, I hope I got your attention. Um, this is my TED Talks assignment for HF 231, and my topic of discussion for this assignment is on what the hospitality industry can do better for deaf customers. But first, I wanted to give a short background as to why I'll be talking about this topic. So last year I decided that I would complete my language requirement during sophomore year by taking American Sign Language. Along with actually learning the language, this class has taught me about the deaf community and the experience of deaf individuals in society. I remember a story my professor Anbo, who's deaf, told the class last semester, and he likes to tell us about his life every once in a while, and he's expressed several times about how much he really loves coffee, particularly Starbucks coffee. And he told us that it's always a difficult experience whenever he goes to Starbucks and tries to order. He'll get to the front of the line and gesture to the barista for a pen and piece of paper to write his order on. But more often than not, the barista tends to get confused and panicked around him, which always makes him feel like a pariah. Despite that, though, he still continues to go back because he loves their coffee so much. And to close out the story that he was telling us, he jokingly told us that there was no reason for the barista to be afraid of him or any deaf person. It wasn't like he was going to bite them. But this story got me thinking about the hospitality industry and what we can do better for those with disabilities. But I'm not the person who needs convincing, so why should the hospitality industry care about this story? It's only one instance of a person having what seems like a pretty minor problem at Starbucks. But according to Gallaudet Research Institute in 2004, 13% of the United States population have hearing problems, which includes those who are deaf and hard of hearing. And while that percentage might not seem very large, it means that around 38 million people in the US have some sort of hearing problem. And now this might be the time where you're asking yourself, well, okay, that's a lot of people, but aren't companies already doing enough by following the mandated regulations? Thanks to the American with Disabilities Act, a lot of things that aid those with disabilities are already put into place. The ADA covers so much ground when it comes to protecting the civil rights of those with disabilities. As an example, the ADA accessibility guidelines clearly outlines how many rooms in a hotel must be accessible for persons who are deaf or hard of hearing. But as you see on the chart, the number of accessible rooms per all rooms in the hotel is a really negligible figure. Hotels are not required to have more than 8% of their hotel rooms accessible to deaf persons. And as listed in the chart, the percentage of required accessible rooms actually decreases as the number of all rooms increases. However, complying with the regulations will only get a company so far. According to the ADA update, a primer for small businesses, and I quote, it says, "A critical and often overlooked component of ensuring success is comprehensive and ongoing staff training. You may have established good policies, but if frontline staff are not aware of them or do not know how to implement them, problems can arise," end quote. So training and education are key components to success. When I was a pool attendant years ago at a hotel, I was never properly trained, and I didn't even receive proper training for how to properly interact with a guest who had a disability. And I'll admit that working poolside is probably not as important as working the front desk, but how many people watching this video who have worked as frontline staff can say that they've been properly trained for this sort of interaction? As for my training experience, I sat in a room for 3 days with 30 other people in different departments across the hotel, and not once did our trainer discuss the possibility of interacting with the guests that had disabilities. But it could have been so easily added into the program. Simply including a section during training about interacting with customers with disabilities could have made a huge impact on how the barista treated my ASL professor. If the employee had been trained for that sort of situation, he wouldn't have panicked and wasted time that could have been spent just taking the order like he would have done for any other hearing person. In closing, the hospitality industry ultimately fails or succeeds on its employees. It's the human interaction that makes the hospitality industry so different from other industries that actually sell durable products. Anbo told us that all he wanted was to be treated like any other customer. So companies should continue to follow the federally mandated requirements, but also educate their employees and consider above going beyond what is required of them. And I'm sure the deaf community, as well as the rest of the population with disabilities, would thank them for it.